What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Pat Cave. Got an exciting update for you today on the Batwing. This is the 1/12, 1/10 scale Batwing that's sized for the Mezco 1/12 1989 Michael Keaton figure. And I know a lot of people have been keeping up with this because they don't make anything sized for this scale. So go ahead and stick around. We're going to check it out right after this. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Pat Cave. Happy to report that the Batwing is finished and here, and pay no attention to my table. This thing's a mess right now. It got scratched really bad from when I was moving something, and I have to refinish it now. So if it looks like shit, that's the reason. So over these last couple of months, I've been posting updates about a project that my dad was working on. This was for my birthday. He was putting this together. He actually did a second Batmobile too, which is behind me on the shelf. So I'll do a separate video on that. And then the first one that he made me. He made some improvements on the second one, and that's why there was a second version, the Batmobile 2.0. That's the McFarlane one that was customized. But if you're here because you want to see the Batwing. This is the Batwing, the finished in all its glory. I went down with my wife and a friend of ours, and we went down to visit, and this was a couple weeks back, and I was able to pick this up. Thank God it fit in the car. I was a little worried it wouldn't. So I guess I'll start from the beginning. This Batwing is scaled to the Mezco 1/12 scale Michael Keaton figure from the 1989 Batman movie. It has that steel armature, the cape even has wire, it's posable, and most toy collectors know that there's no Batwings out currently being offered from the 1989 movie. I think that there might be one made eventually by Jazz Inc. Funny because the figure is in 12th scale, right? But then when we tried to convert the Gambody files of the Batwing over to 12th scale, Batman didn't fit in there correctly. He was way too big. I think this ended up being printed at about 1/10 scale is what we talked about. And it's 36 inches wide, the wingspan of it, and then it's about 30 inches long. And this whole thing was 3D printed by my father. He did each piece, sanded it, finished it, painted it. Took him a few months to do. He did it pretty quickly, all things considered. He did the lighting in the cockpit. In each wing there's a light, and he did a couple changes to the Gambody files just to make it a little bit more accurate. I don't know if back then they had access to the studio scale pictures that were available of the Batwing that was in the movie that was about 6 feet wide, which is massive. So I'll go over a couple of the small changes he made to those files when he was finishing this. First one that I would talk about is the Gatling gun on the side. This, I believe, is like a 50 caliber Gatling gun. In the movie, I never realized this, but in the movie, there's only one Gatling gun there. There isn't one on both sides, and the Gambody files were designed so that it had one on the right and the left. So he ended up filling in this other side here, and smoothing it out, so kind of got rid of that so it matched, the screen used prop. Another change that he did that was a little bit different from the Gambody files that the studio scale model did differently was this area here down in the front. You can see under this little windshield, he added all these little bits of piping and things, kind of removed all the stuff from the old file, the Gambody files, and refinished all that, made it a lot more accurate to the movie. Of course this isn't 100% accurate just because, there's only so much reference, right? And then I think even the studio scale model, if you look at the cockpit, there wasn't even anything really in there. It was just the figure, and even the Batman figure that was in there was a little questionable looking, but it's cool for the time. And in the movie, it's filmed in those really dark scenes. You can see Batman kind of turning his head and like looking, and if it's dark, you can't tell what you're looking at really in those shadows and stuff. So if you see this thing up close, it doesn't really look like Michael Keaton at all. It doesn't really even look like his costume from the movie. I don't think that much, but it's still cool to see nonetheless. So he did the Gatling gun, got that all painted. He painted all these little rockets gold and red, tried to use as much reference as possible from the, the studio scale model or the Jazz Inc. Batwing too, which is that, I believe that one's 4 feet. This is about 3 feet. He ended up doing all the little white details here that are painted on. I think he just ended up doing them by hand, because I think at first he had tried doing pinstriping tape and like cutting it and shaping it to emulate the, you know, the patterns that were on the Batwing. And I think it was just too, I don't know if it was just too tedious or didn't work quite to the degree that he wanted to. So he ended up just hand painting all that stuff, all these little details. And I never even, you know, in the movie, it's very hard to see because the Batwing's always moving. There's no like really still shots of it where you can just sit and look at it and see all these little details. But on the, you know, the studio scale model, the Prop Store of London auctioned off, you can really see all those very clearly how they look. For the paint job, he did like a combination of gunmetal and then black coats. And he really just finished the top. He told me he didn't really do much of the bottom at all, because this thing's gonna be mounted over there in the corner of this room. And we got like a TV stand, like a swivel, and it's gonna be mounted on it. He poured like a resin plate for the bottom with some mounting hardware that can fix to that TV stand so it can swivel and move. I don't foresee myself moving it much, but as far as the lighting goes, he used a lot of these tiny LEDs, and this, you know, in the cockpit here is kind of just up to interpretation. You know, I don't think, like I said, in the movie, you can probably see like when he's turning the buttons on, little colors here and there, but on something that at this scale, it's very difficult to match that exactly accurate. But I know he put a little light in the digital like readout in the center. He put some lights on the sides, and we kind of talked about what colors we wanted to do for that. And there's, you know, the way this 3D model was created was that it has slots cut in all the pieces so that the wires can run through there. It's pretty ingenious, I thought, of whoever designed these files. So like this one in the wings, for instance, these little white LEDs, there's little hollows in the wings that lead all the way back to the cockpit here. And there's a battery pack that's behind the cockpit, I believe he said. And then there's a switch underneath with the batteries, and so you can just turn it on and off. So if it's mounted up high on there, I don't have to reach inside the cockpit to get that done. Some people might be wondering about the clear pieces here, because anyone with a 3D printer that's tried to print clear parts knows that it's very difficult to get them clear. He even experimented a lot with clear resin. I know he polished them, did his best to try and get them super clear, and it just wasn't working out. You know, I think it's just within the scope of a home printer and things like that. It just isn't always perfect. And some of the stuff he sent me, that looked pretty good, I thought. But then in the end, it still got that little bit of haze. It wasn't perfectly clear. So I have a friend from the RPF who does really, really high quality 3D prints, and he printed these two plastic pieces, and thank God they fit more or less. This back piece here comes off, and these prints are just incredible, really. You know, almost crystal clear. They're basically as good as you can get. Unfortunately, they're a little bit expensive. Stuff like that just always is. And this window, I think he was having a little trouble getting it to fit on the back here, so he ended up having to cut a little bit more space. And this just kind of rests on here. It doesn't really snap, which is fine, because I don't, you know, want to have to worry about it getting cracked or anything, or chipping or whatever if I need to like remove it. Anyways, I hope you guys liked the video. If you have any questions, go ahead and shoot those to me. If anyone wants that file for the Batwing, I will direct you to Gambody's website, and you can purchase it. It's not very expensive. I think it's like $10 or something like that. And then you can always print it at home and do your own version of this. And I'll probably do another video once I have this mounted. Right now, it's not mounted because that's going to be a little bit involved, and my weekend's almost over and I don't have enough time. I just finally got this room put back together. That's why I haven't done a video in so long. So eventually I'm going to do a video showing you, giving you a little tour here, but right now it's not completely finished and ready to show. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to post below. My dad's on this channel too, so I'm sure he can answer anything if you guys have any questions. And I just want to say thanks, Dad, so much for putting this together. This thing is incredible. Absolutely amazing, no detail overlooked, but thanks again. This is one of the coolest things you've ever made for me. You know, this and then the custom Batmobile you did are just knocked it out of the park. Dad's actually making an Orca next. He's a huge Jaws fanatic, and he's building an Orca model right now. That one's just for him to keep or to sell, so I think he's putting that together next. But that's going to be quite a big, I think that's going to be sized for those NECA figures he said that they made for Quint and Hopper, but I think he's going to shrink them down a little bit.
So that way, because I know the boat's definitely not, you know, the boat I think would need to be about as big as this table probably if it was sized to those NECA figure scale. So I think he's going to shrink them a little bit so that they're more, I want to say it's going to be about 36 inches. Anyways, hope you guys had a great weekend. It's probably Monday now by the time I'm posting this, but I will catch you guys for the next video soon.